yesterday, state officials announced that restaurants can begin to reopen their outside dining spaces under Phase 2 here in Western New York. Joining us on the show to talk more about that is Jamestown Mayor Eddie Sundquist. Mayor, great to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start with the news of outdoor dining rooms now included in that phase, which we're currently in here in Western New York. Do city officials plan to work with some of these restaurants in Jamestown, maybe those downtown who don't specifically have an outdoor space, to allow them to operate some sort of seating in front of their business or a nearby public space like you sometimes see in New York City?
Absolutely. So one of the things is that we've just learned as of yesterday about the permission to use outdoor seating. But the city's actually been quite ahead of the curve here. We've been working with our council members and different working group of local businesses to help put together a plan to use not only sidewalk space, but also parklets, so parking spaces, as well as other public spaces across the city. We're getting ready to roll that out actually this week to bring and get feedback from our council members and the public. So they've kind of made it a little bit easier for us and given us some additional guidance to add in. So we're prepared for that. Right now, if you are a local restaurant or business that wants to go ahead and start using the sidewalk, you do need to get a permit from the city. We have a process for that. You can simply call our Department of Development office to get that permit started. And we also have a lot of businesses that already have those permits and just need to make sure it's up to date and active. So we are working very closely with our city council and with our community to help open up our public spaces for people.
Now, what is the best way for restaurants to maybe begin that process and learn a little bit more about what it takes to obtain a permit?
So right now, the easiest thing they could do is simply call our Department of Development so that we can walk you through the process as it is right now for the use of sidewalks. This week, we'll be coming out with some additional information on using additional spaces across the city, other public spaces. But as it stands right now, we've had in the code for several years what is called a sidewalk permit, sidewalk cafe permit, where we can start to use public space in order to operate your business.
And certainly, I know I saw that you had a post today on Facebook, and I don't know too much about it because I don't have it right here in front of me. But are you going to be kind of reaching out to the community in general? I think the post was about some sort of virtual meeting, if I'm correct. How was that education aspect of it? Because I know there are a lot of local restaurants, Taco Hut, for example, who decided to close during COVID-19 because they weren't doing as much takeout business as they once thought. They're going to resume that according to their Facebook page in the next week. But I'd imagine for a lot of restaurants, if they could even just have 1, 2, 3 tables right out in front, they'd get business.
Yes, so today at 1 o'clock, our Department of Development is doing a webinar open to the public on how to safely open up your business and provide outdoor seating. The state late last night had released guidance for anyone who wants to use outdoor seating, and we're going to provide that information to the public. We'll also have it posted on our website once it's completed for those that can't join today. But more importantly, we're encouraging all restaurants just to give our office a call, whether that's the mayor's office or the Department of Development, just to walk through that process. There is some guidance in terms of using the public right-of-ways, so sidewalks and things like that. But if you're a private business and you've got a back porch or a back deck and you normally serve patrons there, you just have to follow the guidance from the state. You don't need any permission from the city or other municipalities. But if you want to use any type of city sidewalk, city right-of-way, the city has to agree to it. And we've also been notified by the state liquor authority that those that have alcohol permits, alcohol licenses, as long as you have a valid permit from the city and the city signs off on it, you can start to vend and serve alcohol in those city spaces as well.
Now, yesterday, the city sent out a news release discussing a phased approach to financial reconstructing following the COVID-19 pandemic. I know not just here in Jamestown, but budgets across the nation and local municipalities are facing some struggles. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that and what a plan could look like to try to help city government with their spending outlook going forward?
Absolutely. So it's no secret that we are looking at anywhere from a $2 to $4 million budget deficit this year because of COVID. That includes revenue, that includes loss of sales tax, as well as a projected loss of state aid. If we lose that, we obviously put ourselves in a very difficult position when the city's already on a tight budget. We can't raise taxes to raise funds because we're at a tax cap here in the city of Jamestown. So we're now in a position where, as a new mayor, almost 6 months in, we're making even larger cuts to a budget that's pretty thin. So my team and I had went through everything that we've got. We have to make some very difficult decisions to programs and services that we offer here in the city, and we're going to need to cut them this year in order to make up for the budget gap. So we put out a 2020 COVID restructuring plan for our budget. We are asking the council to approve that. We put several phases as part of it, phases. The first one is cuts that we can make quickly and easily and result in absolutely no layoff of employees, at least our full-time employees. Some of our part-time employees have already left the city because of financial reasons. But if we have to go even tighter, if we realize that our revenues continue to fall in the next couple quarters, next couple months, then we're looking at additional phases, which are much, much more difficult. The second phase would be a layoff of about up to 20 employees in the city. The third phase would also be an additional layoff of 10 or more employees in the city. And those phases would require immediate renegotiation of our contracts, as well as a drastic cut in city services in terms of hours and ability to have personnel to respond to citizen issues.
You mentioned that some programs are in jeopardy because of these financial hardships. Specifically, what are you looking at to trim down?
In the first phase of cuts, we've cut all except a couple summer help positions across the board. We've reduced spending overall in our various departments. We've cut construction projects across the board. We would also be forced to cut all summer programs, so rec leagues, baseball leagues, as well as all festivals and other things that the city would typically sponsor. So a lot of quality of life things would need to be cut and immediately and drastically. But the main thing for me as mayor and for our city council is that if we can do it, we want to do so with no layoffs. It's something that can't be said for other areas, including the county and other municipalities across the state. I'm proud to say that we're one of the few municipalities that have continued to pay all of our employees during this very difficult time and want to continue to keep our employees as we go forward. So we're trying to do everything we can to prevent layoffs here in the city.
Now, in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic and now the reopening effort here, we've seen locally in the past week many community members come out and support the Black Lives Matter movement. On Sunday specifically, you and local law enforcement attended a rally where you engaged in dialogue with the community. For you, why was it important to go there on Sunday and engage in that discussion?
Well, Justin, one of the biggest things is I was always raised and taught that as a human being, you should do the right thing. It may not always be the most popular thing, and it may not be the best thing, but it's the right thing. So when we heard that there was going to be protests that related to the Black Lives Matter, both myself and the chief of police, we went to start a dialogue with the community. Our community is hurting. It is dealing with issues of racial tension across the area and across our nation. And so as mayor, it's important that I'm a leader, that I go and I actually show the community how we can engage in dialogue, how we can safely and smartly make change, and really work on the issues of inclusiveness here in the city of Jamestown.
What was the biggest concern that you heard on Sunday, and then how do you plan to address that at city government levels?
So we need to have more dialogue. We need to have more discussions on how the city can be more inclusive and more diverse. So we are working as a city and as a community to start to bring community members together, to start to address issues of both racial tensions and religious tensions here in the city of Jamestown. We're working to kind of create this committee and create this process. And as we get into next week, we should have more information for the public, and we're excited to share that.
Now, coming up tomorrow, as we mentioned earlier in our news rundown here, local religious leaders are scheduled to meet with officials to continue that movement's conversation. They say that's the most important part is they will have a horrible, horrible event like Mr. Floyd's death, which will spark outrage and bring the conversation to the forefront. But then as time goes on, it slowly but surely falls back out of the spotlight. For you, do you plan to attend tomorrow's religious discussion at noon? And then, if so, what do you hope that that conversation will achieve?
Well, I've had conversations with the folks organizing this religious grouping, this religious gathering, to address issues that we're experiencing across the nation. I will be there. I will be speaking to our community, our religious leaders, about the ways that we can all work together to further the dialogue, to start to make change here in the city of Jamestown, and more importantly, just to heal as one community. That's a very strong part of the work that we need to do in order to make sure that the city of Jamestown is progressive and also responsive to our residents.
Why do you think that Mr. Floyd's death has sparked such an outrage here in Jamestown? I mean, some people say we're thousands of miles away from where that incident happened, but here in Jamestown, it's very much on the mind of many.
I don't think it matters what community you're in. It's something that has been a part of this nation where there are tensions, and people, and we aren't recognizing the fact that there are differences among human beings that live here. There are differences in the way that we do things, but more importantly, we need to recognize what those differences are and be able to bring those to light. And I think the death that we've seen has really helped spark it, but also spark that conversation. And we may not experience all the things that we see in other communities, but we're hurting nonetheless, and we do experience some things, and we need to address those things.
All right, Jamestown Mayor Eddie Sundquist joining us on the broadcast today. Mayor, great to have you. We appreciate your time and the discussion that we had.
Thanks so much.